Hi, this is a gerbil cage that we are trying to find a good home for. I made this for my 3 kids years ago, completely from scratch, and it worked marvelously. And so for the right person, it's a wonderful, I would call it a hobby. The reason for that is aside from the animal keeping, the cage itself is something that, for me, I made uh, additional compartments. We're showing you the original cabinet that they lived in, and made some shelves and ramps and things for them to go around on. And then slowly but surely started to add other compartments and vertical tubes that they could climb around in. Um, the way I did that was, or at least the fun part of it was, that I would move their food from where they were used to seeing it and eventually putting it into a new spot that would be further along through these sort of maze of tunnels. And so this box here that we're looking at was a nail caddy, and I put it vertically and covered the fronts, and this is their water dispenser and a couple of imitation little animals in there to show kind of what they look like, and then some other tubes here that they can go all around in. And then over here, gerbils love to chew, and so what I would do here was every time I'd have a toilet paper roll, I would stick it in there and they would go to chewing it all up, and little bits would fall down the hole that they came up through. And so this area down below tends to get kind of full of little ground bits of cardboard, and then that eventually falls down to the bottom cabinet and makes for a real nice little sort of bedding for them. And so there's not much cleaning involved. Every once in, I can't remember how often, it wasn't very often, I would just scoop everything out and throw it in the compost or something, and they'd start fresh. So they're a lot of fun, and we had gerbils in there, maximum of 3 that we ever had in there. Later, I think we tried hamsters, and they worked as well. Their pee was a little more smelly. I think they function a little differently from a gerbil that way, so my preference was the gerbils for this cage. Now what you need to be aware of is that this cage has, I guess you could call them hazards, in that the gerbils constantly chew, and so anything that they can chew, like they love wood, which this cabinet is partly made of, and or even plastic, and so you have to kind of stay a couple of steps ahead of them and watch for places where they chew. And it's easy to prevent them from escaping as long as you just cover those spots with some of this mesh, the wire mesh. They don't chew, and so I've got some extras of that. We're now showing you the big vertical setup that eventually they were used to climbing straight up to the top of that. At first I put their food up at the top, and then later on I would put it down in this area. Ultimately it was where they were eating, but you can do that wherever you want. So this is an example here where they chewed this wooden ramp here, and I didn't want them to chew it right through, or the ramp would fall down, and so I just wrapped some of the mesh around it, and that stopped them from doing any more chewing. So So it does require someone that's fairly handy to just keep an eye on this thing and just watch for what the gerbils are doing, and make sure that they're little they can't escape. But it's a lot of fun to add things to it, and it's real easy to modify what is in here to make it whatever suits you. So we'd love to give it to a good home. I can help carry it down to the road. I don't have a means of transporting it, but I will add the dimensions to it. I didn't measure that in it before now, but I will do that and add that to the ad. Yeah, I think that's it.